Okay, can I have somebody read our what's up here right now? Just the first one, okay? This is what we're going to be learning about today during class. Hadley, go ahead.
I can find the problems in a story.
Awesome. Emerson?
I can discuss how the problems in the story are important to
Perfect. So what I want you guys to do is get out your vocabulary notebook, just like we do every day. Yep. And turn to the page that has the words equal and unequal on them. So does anybody know what equal means? Veronica? So the same? Perfect. So alike or the same. That's exactly the meaning for it. What is the, we've already talked about the prefix on. What does on mean? Cooper?
It means like, not, like, it's not like doing something, like.
It just means not.
Yeah,
So un means not. Right. So if equal means alike or the same, what does unequal mean? Connor?
The exact opposite, like, with Martin Luther King Jr.'s, like, white and black, they were, unequal, and until Martin Luther King Jr. changed it.
Right. Perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read from where these come up in the book. Okay, so read or follow along with me while I read. The kings had tried to fight for their right to be treated as equals. That was on page 6, so we already read that. Another part where equal shows up is the black community protested for their right to be treated as equal citizens. And we're going to see that one in a while. That's at the end of the book. Anybody remember what inferred means? Remember Miss Anderson told us about inferred? Shay?
It's when you bring this knowledge and new knowledge and go.
Perfect. So when you bring old knowledge and new knowledge and put them together, right? So this next one is an inference of unequal, okay? So the sentence says, in hundreds of towns across the South, black people remain second-class citizens. So unequal is inferred there. Why is it inferred? Connor? You know? You forgot? You have an idea, Cooper? You want me to reread it? Okay. So it says, in hundreds of towns across the South, black people remain second-class citizens. What does second-class citizens mean? Cooper?
Maybe like they go before white and it's more later, so they're tired.
Kinda. It means second-class citizens mean they're like lower than. So a first-class citizen would be like.
Oh yeah.
It would be you and I, which is everyone's a first-class citizen now. Second class would be like worse than that. So like way worse. So basically, this is saying in hundreds of towns across the South, black people remained worse than the white people. Is basically what it's saying.
Yeah, like kind of worse.
Like the black people are not held at equal as white people. They're not equal. So that's why unequal is inferred in this sentence. Does that make sense? Cooper?
So kind of like my sister does gymnastics, and like for the first time, like it's like this second level or something. They call them like holy holies, and then they go on like the first level, but it's like they're down a level.
Right, but in this instance, first class citizen is as high as it gets. Second class is lower. So second is a lower version. Does that make sense?
That's just
right. Let's flip around. Perfect. So who can tell me what equal is again? Shay.
Like an amount, like an equal amount of people.
Okay. What does equal mean?
Citizens.
What was the word we used to describe equal? I think Veronica told us. Do you want to help him out, Veronica?
Same.
Same. So equal means same. Write this with me, please. Thank you, Blake. Thank you, Chelsea. So what does unequal mean? Notice that out. Okay. Yeah. We're gonna actually cross out while you guys are waiting for everyone else to catch up. We're gonna cross out. Oh, it says what it is this time. This says it the way it's supposed to. Last one didn't say it like this. So we'll put unequal here. Sorry, guys. Right. Remember when we had to cross out the other one last time? That was because they wrote it wrong in the packet. They not us. They did.
Wait, why does it say what is it? What is?
Yeah. So equal. So we're doing equal on this side, and then this side's unequal. We're describing both of them. Since they're opposites of each other, we don't need to say what the opposite of equal is because it's unequal. So what is unequal? Blake.
Say that there's this math problem. Say I have 6 apples and you have 4.
Okay. Perfect. That's a good example. What would we define it as? Opal? Right. So not the same. Right. So unequal is not the same. So how can we remember equal?
Like in math problem.
Think about math. Okay. What about unequal, writer? How can we think about unequal?
Whites get chosen more
Oh, in the book?
in this class. He said like
Oh.
white people get chosen.
So what about unequal? That's what we're talking about. Do you have an idea? Or do you want help? Okay. Chelsea, do you want help him?
For unequal?
Yeah.
Think about Martin Luther King.
Okay. Perfect. So Jocelyn and Kaya, we're just writing in our vocabulary books. We're about to finish up, so if you don't get completely caught up, it's okay. Okay. We'll get you caught up later. I'm done, so I'm waiting for you guys. Okay. So when you're done, if I could see your thumbs up, that would be awesome. Thank you, Olivia.
Is it LU? Look on your book. Look on your book.
Yeah, look in your book.
Book is in front of
There you go. Awesome. Looks like everybody's passed on. Perfect. Thank you, Jenna. What? You can put MLK, that's okay. So, we're going to move on. So why don't you guys put your vocabulary handbook back in your stamina folder. Yep. And while you're doing that, I'm going to start the next part, okay?
In science?
Nope, with what we're doing with MLK. So we have been learning that good readers think about the main story elements as they begin reading a book. We have already identified the setting and some important events. We did that yesterday. Today I'm going to teach you that good readers identify the problems in a story. The problems in a story are an important part of the plot. So today we're going to reread chapter 2. Okay? Yeah, don't worry about it. I don't need your journals out right now, okay? I just want you listening, okay? So, I'm going to read chapter 2, and we're going to look for problems in the story, okay? So, good readers often go back and reread chapters that they've already read with a new purpose. So, just like how we read chapter 2 last week for important events, we're going to reread for problems this time, okay? So, as I read, watch me as I model how I look for problems that the main character is going to face. So we're going to open up our reader's notebooks. A lot of you already have it open. So open up to the next page in your reader notebook. We're going to do it, and then we're not doing another lesson. So find your next page, and we're going to label it. Thank you, Shay, for being ready. Thank you, Cooper. Okay, so at the top of the page, we're going to label it Problems List. So just like we do with the important events, this is where we're going to track the problems in the story. So making sure that we know about the problems is going to help us predict what's going to happen next. Shay?
Do we have to underline problems?
You can if you want. That's fine. Thank you, guys. So I'm going to begin reading. We're going to read chapter 2 again, so on page 9. Chapter 2's title, follow along with me, chapter 2's title is Loss of Innocence. 6 years later, young Martin Luther King was hiding at the top of the stairs with his little brother Alfred. They needed to think fast. Their piano teacher would be here any minute. And they both hated her lessons. "I've got it," Alfred announced. "We can sneak down and smash up the piano." Martin considered Alfred's plan, but shook his head. He had a better idea. Half an hour later, Martin's mother gathered the pair in the lounge for their lesson. But as she greeted the piano teacher, there were two things she failed to notice. The first was the grins on her son's faces, and the second was that the piano stool's legs had been loosened. As the teacher sat down, the stool collapsed, sending her and her music flying backwards. "Alfred! Martin! Alfred!" Mrs. King screamed. But the boys had already darted out of the door. Martin ran down the street to his best friend's house. He loved Atlanta on summer evenings, especially the way the sun set across the old wooden houses. But summer was almost over, and soon school would start. He was determined to have as much fun as possible. First, Martin darted up to his friend's house and jumped to ring the doorbell. After a second, his friend's father answered. The tall man looked at Martin, then closed the door a little. "My son can't come out," he said. "You two can't play anymore." Martin was startled. "Why not?" he asked. The man stared down at him, his eyes suddenly cold and serious. "Because you're black, and he's white," he said. And then he slammed the door.
It's a sad part.
There's a sad part.
What's that part? Because the girls need to be
Wait, so when the book said that Martin couldn't play with his friend because Martin was black, I thought the problem was that black people were being treated unfairly. So we're going to add this to our problems list. Yep, so we're going to add, so write with me please. We're going to add black people were being treated, it's just a bullet. Yeah. Black people were being treated unfairly. That was one of our vocabulary words from the other day.
The what?
Unfairly? Remember?
The what? No, that was.
I think it was yesterday. Not today's, but it was
Loss
yesterday.
of innocence was yesterday.
Oh, you're right. Maybe the day before?
Yeah. The day before it was like 21.
You guys have a way better memory than I do.
Well, sometimes we did.
Yeah, we did do it though. We did fairly versus unfairly. Thank you, Veronica.
Okay, we need segregation. They did. Wait,
Thank you, Ace.
fairly was today. No, but equal was today. Equal and unequal.
Okay. So, okay, you want a couple more minutes?
Yeah. Me too.
Great. Thank you, Connor. Thank you, Heather. You guys have a lot of points right now. Holy moly. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah.
Well, you guys have, we'll talk about it before we go home. How about that? Sound good?
It's for binders.
Okay. So as I continue to read, I want it to be your turn to identify the problem in the story. So I'm going to stop after this one and see if you guys can identify the next problem.
Didn't we already do that yesterday?
We did important events. Now we're dealing with problems. Remember? That's
Yeah,
where
but
we're.
we already figured out that.
It might be similar. So here we go. So follow along. I'm on page 11.
Oh, really?
Later that day, Martin asked his mother what the man had meant. She looked sad for a moment. Then, very carefully, she explained. She told her son about the history of black people in America, how they had once been slaves, but were now free, and many white people couldn't accept that. Then, Martin's mother looked deep into his eyes. Martin had never seen her so serious. No matter what the rest of the world says, she told him, you're as good as anyone else.
That's where we stop listening.
That's where we're going to stop again today.
What?
So what might the problem be in that part that we can add to our problems list?
No, because remember, until then, he's never noticed the differences between the way black and white people live. That's where we stop. No, we didn't.
Well, that's where we're stopping today, okay? So what's the problem in that part? Do you want me to reread it?
No.
What's the problem that might be part of that?
He did.
Oh, hold. Okay. What did Martin Luther King notice in that part? I'll tell you what I think, okay? Right, you could play with right friend. So Martin Luther King, so when the book said that Martin suddenly saw the differences between the way black people and white people lived, I thought the problem was that it was going to change. It was a big deal. His mom thought it was a huge deal. So what I want you guys to do is go ahead. What? We're going to do a turn and talk real quick. So get with your turn and talk partner.
We don't have one. Yeah.
It's your chemistry partners. The sentence stem, 3, 2, 1, give me 5. The sentence stem is, when the book said that Martin suddenly saw the differences between the way black people lived and white people lived, I thought the problem was. Go ahead.
When the book said that
Great. What was your part? So Connor, since your partner's not here, what do you want to do? Or do you want to tell me what do you think? Perfect. You're good. 3, 2, 1, give me 5. Everyone head back to your seats. We're going to add this to our problem list. Emerson wants to share, so go ahead. When everybody's ready, Emerson, go ahead.
Hey, you guys should just.
What? What are you talking about? Okay, Emerson, go ahead. Oh, you need to see the stuff. Sorry. Wait, hold on. Let's wait for everybody to be quiet.
The book said that Martin suddenly saw the difference between the way black people live and the white people live. I thought the problem was that it was sad that Martin couldn't see his best friend. Black people should be treated.
Anybody else have one they want to say? Opal?
When the book said that Martin suddenly saw the difference between the way black people and white people live, I thought the problem was that he didn't notice that there was his friend.
Awesome. Anybody else? Right.
When the book said that Martin suddenly saw the difference between the way black people live and white people live, I thought the problem black people were being treated unfairly.
Perfect. So I'm gonna stop there because Ryder's was pretty spot on to what I wanted to add. So to our problems list, let's add
Black people were being treated unfairly.
black people.
Unfair. We can't do.
Oh, sorry guys. Black people and white people. Ryder, should we write with this? We're not treated as equals. Remember what I said yesterday? I write really fast so I can make sure that everyone's. I don't expect you to write that fast. What? What's that? Well, he says, so it says black people and white people are not treated as equal, so they won't equal, is what it's saying. Remember what equal means? If they're not equal, then they're unequal.
Is that WH? fire and leather.
That's cute. Cute. Thank you guys.
It looks like they're together.
Okay, so I'm going to continue to read. If you're still writing, it's okay. Just listen. I want you to continue to listen in for problems that we might run into in the story, that Martin might run into.
Is black people and white people were not treated as equal the same as Israelites?
Yeah, it's the same. Yeah, I just skipped one so it's easy for you guys. What? Nope, we have a little bit more to read. So, yes, in a way, Martin lost his innocence that day. Until then, he'd never noticed the differences between the way white people, or black people and white people lived. But now he saw them everywhere. He saw assistants in shops serving black people last. In the streets, he saw white people watching with fear and suspicion. Suddenly, it was as if Atlanta was two different worlds. One for white people and one for blacks. Martin still played around and got into trouble like any other boy. But there was a fire inside him, which would never go out. From that day on, he was determined to prove his mother right and show the whole world that he was as good as anyone else. So we learned that Martin was becoming more and more determined to do something to stop the unequal treatment of blacks in America. What do you think Martin will do to try and stop the unequal treatment? Kaya? So we learned that Martin is becoming more determined to stop the unequal treatment of blacks in America. What do you think he's going to do?
When he's growing up, he's going to probably be so he can make his people better.
He's going to make the world better. Okay. Emerson, you guys have a lot of background knowledge on this, so everyone should have something.
Right, what you just said, like that in the story, I think that's how he knew what he's going to do.
Right.
I have a dream speech.
Right. So he's going to do the I have a dream speech.
Yeah, I think he got it from that because he wanted to still play with his friends, and they were just want black people playing black people and white people.
Okay. Veronica?
I think he's gonna keep his dream and keep doing it until they're free.
Okay. Well, so at this time period, black people were already free. They just weren't treated equal.
Yeah.
Right. So then maybe they'll be equal. Okay. Anybody else have anything to add? All right. So today and every day when you read, I want you to identify the problems in the story, which are really important to the plot. So what were our learning targets for the day? Can somebody reread them to me? Hayden, you want to read the first one?
I can find the problem in a story.
Okay. Hadley.
I can discuss how the problems in the story are important to the plot. I think those are the two people that read it last time.
Was
No,
it?
you did.
Was it the same people? Sorry, that was totally on accident. Okay, so
I did it last time.
tomorrow we're going to continue reading on chapter 3, and we'll continue to add to this problem list that you guys are creating. But for now, go ahead and put your CIA notebooks away, and then please put your Martin Luther King Jr. books away one at a time.